We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
Right, so the Sunrisers Hyderabad all set to go down against the Rajasthan Royals. We look back at that game. We'll also look ahead to Punjab against Delhi on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket Footy T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. Not too much time, but let's wrap up one game and look ahead to the other. Dale Steyn, Dan Vettori, both here. And the Sunrisers Hyderabad all set to face what defeat that'll keep them at the foot of the IPL points table. And Dale, it looks like a side that that just looks done.
Yeah, that's not the kind of performance that you want to be putting out all the time. But, saying that, chasing a big score like a 220, that can kind of happen. You either got to keep going with the over rate required or the run rate required, and you get close. And you sometimes win them like we saw Mumbai did last night, but you need somebody to play out of their socks, and you need someone to play an innings of a lifetime, essentially the same way that Kieran Pollard played last night. And unfortunately, no one from Sunrisers tonight just looked up to that pot. And it started with the ball. It started from there already. Just kind of got dragged over into the batting. So that's a game that they're not going to want to remember for a while.
I mean, you'd feel for a franchise that clearly is going through some sort of, let's call it a crisis, let's call it a situation, whatever you want to call it, Dan. But when you make changes, you try and hope for a turnaround with new leadership or new tactics. But tactically, are Sunrisers giving themselves the best chance to actually turn things around from what you've seen today?
Well, I think Sunrisers have been exempt from this sort of season or performance for almost their entirety. They've been an amazing organisation, and I think it's 5 or 6 years in a row in the playoffs. So it feels even stranger when you see this team going through these sorts of performances and obviously chasing the game, and that's a really difficult position to be in as a franchise. And they made a big change today, leaving out Warner, not only from the captaincy but from the playing 11. It just hasn't worked. So it could be like, I suppose Sunrisers need to view it like a season like CSK viewed last year, that it hasn't gone well, but how do we bounce back and how do we start that planning already?
Now, when you make such a change, if you manage to nick the next game, or if you get the 2 points suddenly, then the team, I'm guessing the team feels a bit better. Conversely, when you go down sort of this easy, what sort of effect do you think it can have on the rest of the team, Dale?
Yeah, it's not a good place for them to be at right now. We don't know what's happening behind the closed doors, with the Warner exits and everything like that. But it just didn't, the guys will go out there and they'll pump up their chests and, spread their shoulders to make it look like they are comfortable, make it look like they're happy, because you don't want to show any signs of weakness. But when you're losing like this, it can have a psychic effect on your mind, going into the next game, going into the rest of the tournament and that. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about it. But I think Kane Williamson's a fantastic man. He's a great human. He's a great captain. And he'll try and rally these guys together and squeeze whatever they can out of the rest of the season, because you always you want to finish well. And like Dan said there, we saw CSK struggle in the start of last year's IPL, but they finished off well. And look where they are this year. They're sitting right up at the top. They look like the championship team that they actually are. And Sunrisers are probably just going through that right now. So they'll have to make some changes in terms of how they're thinking going into the rest of the tournament, so that they can, get something out of it, so that next year they can start off on a better note.
Well, it gets no easier for the Sunrisers. They've got Mumbai, Chennai, and Bangalore as their next 3 opponents. So that's hard work for the Sunrisers. Just that sort of thing that tends to happen with the fixtures. But on the other hand, Dan, Rajasthan Royals would take these 2 points, and a lot seems to be going today. Karthik Tyagi bowled well. Josh Butler's among the runs. So they'd take the 2 points right now, wouldn't they?
Well, they had their complete performance, and I think when a team has sort of been battling around and trying to grab wins, and they've had a couple, but when they put together that complete performance, then that's the thing that breeds the most confidence, and they'll take so much out of their 2 best batsmen performing, and like a lot of IPL teams, they rely on their top 3 or 4, and Samson and Butler today were incredible. But I think the thing they'll be most pleased with was the way they backed up with the ball, in particular Tyagi coming back into the team. Sangakkara noted that he'd been injured, but he bowled with pace, and he looked really good. And I think he complements the rest of their bowling attack. I suppose the other thing was Mustafiz has had his best bowling performance of the tournament so far, and he went to a slow ball a lot. I know he's been working on trying to swing it, but today he went to tried and true slow ball, and he looked to confuse a lot of batsmen. So complete performance for Rajasthan will be the most pleasing thing.
For a side that's had their own share of troubles this season, Dale, they've lost Archer, they've lost Stokes, they clearly had other injuries, like Kumar Sangakkara said, with Karthik Tyagi. They're still there and thereabouts, and things are coming together, aren't they? Yeah,
they keep going, they keep fighting, and I think that's something that Kumar kind of brings to the table, having played for a team like Sri Lanka for a long period of time. When you think Sri Lanka, you think Sangakkara, you think Mahela, Malinga, and then you kind of like lose in between where some other great players are, as opposed to if you're thinking about great Australian teams, Indian teams, New Zealand teams, and all that. So he would have brought that and just told the guys, stay calm. We've got the personnel to keep going, and they're using the guys well. Butler's doing well now. Samson's led well. Everybody seems to. Morris has stepped up beautifully with the ball, although he's always been a good bowler. He's just stepping up nicely, and everyone that's coming in, Tiagi's looking good. Fizz is confident. He's having a run of games, and I think the management off the field, they are just using these guys so well, because they've been hit pretty hard. They've lost a whole bunch of players and big name players that they would have expected to be playing a massive part for them. Stokes, Archer, these guys are massive. You can't replace these guys, and yet they still just keep going. And when they put in performances like this, they look like they can match the big names, the Mumbai Indians, the Chennais, the RCBs. So they're doing great. They're doing wonderful stuff.
All right. Well, Rajasthan Royals onward upward then, and we'll see how the Sunrisers respond in 3 tough games that lined up for them. But it's a double-header day, and Punjab and Delhi. Toss has already gone down in Ahmedabad, and unfortunately for Punjab fans, it's news that isn't what you would have wanted ahead of this game. The franchise confirming ahead of match 29 against the Delhi Capitals that KL Rahul played that wonderful innings in the last game against Bangalore. Was a bit of a surprise win against the run of play, you think. The statement put out by the franchise is, of course, that he's been hospitalized due to acute appendicitis. So that is a huge blow for the Punjab Kings. And, well, you know how these things work. It could take a little time before KL Rahul is back and part of the Punjab side. So they're going to have to do without their captain and their most important batsman. Now, it's the kind of thing that I'm not sure a franchise can ever sort of replace, Dan, but you've got to expect injury at times to come in, and it couldn't be worse, the timing. After having that win against Bangalore, Rahul has taken the lead in the orange cap race as well, and I guess this is just the kind of thing that just is deflates a franchise sometimes.
I did my appendicitis research before this, and he's probably going to be out for the tournament. So it's a huge blow for Punjab Kings, particularly on the back of his performance in the last game, how important he is to his team. There was a stat during the previous game round. I think he scores sort of 25-26% of their runs. So that just shows how important he is. Plus he's their captain, and most of the time he's the wicketkeeper. I know he was in the last game, but most of the time he is. So you take that out of a team. First of all, you take all that performance out of them, but I think most of all you deflate the team. I think you've had a team that's feeling really good about themselves after beating RCB on the back of some really good performances within individuals in that team, but now you wipe that away with no KL Rahul. So I feel sorry. I feel sorry for him. Obviously, hopefully it all goes well. But I feel sorry for the franchise that was probably on an upward trend, and now that's been taken away from them.
Yeah, I mean, there are many players that rely on their talismanic Indian superstar batsman, Dale, whether it's Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli, but you just think that Punjab relies so much more on Rahul than some of the other franchises do on a Rohit or a Kohli.
Yeah, he's massive. I mean, he is, for Punjab, he is what AB de Villiers is to RCB, what Rohit is to Mumbai Indians. And like Dan says, when you lose that guy, he's the player. He's their captain. He leads with the bat. He's just everything. He manages the space from behind the stumps. So he marshals everything there. And when you take him out of it, that can be extremely deflating. But it's also, and we say this all the time, it's also a great opportunity for the other guys who haven't been performing particularly well. Nicholas Pooran needs to come to the party now. He needs to go, all right, cool. I need to step up. I need to score a lot of runs. The big dog is gone. Mayank is back in. I think he's captaining the side. So these guys have all now got added responsibility on their shoulders. And sometimes they do step up better when you've got somebody else to kind of lay that foundation for them. So now that KL's gone, these guys, you might actually just see the best of somebody like a Pooran and a Gale, and these guys start to play even better than they actually perform now.
Well, unfortunately, Pooran will have to wait his turn. He's not on the guest list for the party tonight. He's going to
make way well, there we go.
For David Malan, who makes his IPL debut. So that was something that could have happened. We did wonder whether they would give him one more game or not. Who knows if Rahul was playing, whether they would have been tempted to stick with the same team that beat Bangalore. But in his absence, David Malan, who could very well bat in the top 3 or maybe 4, does get his first IPL cap. He is still the number 1 ranked T20 international batsman. No changes otherwise, but Mayank Agarwal, who missed the last game due to a big soft blow, has come back for Rahul and will captain the side. We did see Chris Gale captain the side for a few overs while Rahul was off the field. You'd think it's perhaps related to what we've now learned is acute appendicitis, but Mayank Agarwal's first game as captain in the IPL as well. So no Nicholas Pooran. Dan, thoughts on that? Could this have been a call regardless of whether Rahul would have been fit, or is this a call that's almost taken place after knowing that KL Rahul, one of your main top order batsmen, won't be in?
I think it probably would have been to replace KL Rahul. I hope David gets a go in the top 3. I think that's where he's at his best. And he likes to bat in those positions because it gives him his best understanding of his role, and also just he likes to take balls to get himself in. So I hope he does get a chance in that top 3 because he's been a very good player for a long time, and he deserves a chance in the IPL. He worked hard to get his way into the England team, and he's worked hard to get himself into this IPL. So after Nicholas Pooran struggled for the first part of the season, I think Milan's come in mainly to replace KL Rahul. But he's a pretty good player, so they've got a good replacement there.
Now that if we are to assume that this is going to keep KL Rahul out for at least a significant period of time, daily, maybe for the rest of the tournament, like Dan points out, is there a case now to change things at the top? Chris Gale's always wanted to open. He was batting 3 because of the makeup of this team. Do you now take a call and say Mayank and Gale to open with David Malan at 3 is the way to go? Because they tried Simran Singh, the young Punjab batsman, last game at the top of the order.
Well, I think David Malan will be suited in the top 3. That's where he'd want to bat. Chris Gale obviously has got a phenomenal record as an opening batter, but since he's been playing for Kings, Punjab Kings, he's kind of fitted in nicely at that 3, sometimes even 4 position. So I think if you're going to use David Malan, that's where you'd want to kind of slot him in within the top 3. It's also his debut, so you want to give him the best opportunity. He's definitely deserves this. He's been the number 1 T20 batter in the world for almost close to 3 years, and hasn't yet gotten a gig at the IPL. So he'll be chomping at the bit to get out there and do his thing. And I think if you want to best see what he's capable of, he's going to have to get in up the order and open or within the top 3.
What it does do is perhaps, again, like we've seen with the Sunrisers, Dan, is put a lot of uncapped Indian inexperienced batsmen together in the middle order. If they play Prabh Simran, Shah Rukh Khan, perhaps even Deepak Hooda back to back, is that a bit of a concern? And therefore, do you split up the experience and have Prabh Simran at the top where he was in the last game, which means Malan would bat 4? Or would you now take a call and say, no, let's reshuffle things and let's have Gale and Mayank at the top?
Well, I think Mayank could be the one that could slot into that middle order with his own experience and probably understanding of some of the Indian batsmen more than a David Malan. Obviously, Chris has been there for a long time now, so he would. But I always like to find the best positions for your best batsmen. So I don't want to mess around with my best batsmen a lot of the time. And so if you look at that lineup, it is Mayank, Chris Gale, and David Malan, albeit him being in his first game. So if you can settle on the best three positions for them, then I think everything sort of falls in place around it. But if there was one sacrifice, I think I'd look at Mayank in that number 4 spot to support those Indian batsmen.
All right, that's interesting. In just a few minutes from now, we'll find out who Punjab actually send, because Rishabh Pant has won another toss. He's going to have a bowl first. So the Capitals happy with their chasing. They gunned down target against KKR quite easily in the last game with Prithvi Shaw on fire. And they've not made any changes to that team. We're not sure if Amit Mishra is recovered from his shoulder injury, but they've decided to stick with Lalit Yadav, perhaps looking at a matchup against Chris Gale and maybe one more left-hander, whether it was Malan or Puran. Delhi are happy to stick with the off-spin of Lalit Yadav. So Anrik Nokia continues to wait his turn, and they continue to go on with Steve Smithdale, someone who still had to have a big impact for this side and was pushed lower and lower down the order in the chase last time around. It was comfortable, but that's the same team. Delhi playing. No surprises?
No surprises. Won the last game. They were great. Prithvi Shaw was amazing. And yeah, I mean, understandable, you're going to push Smith a little bit further down the order if you've got Pant and the likes of Hetmeyer who can really hit the ball out of the ground. Smith's a great guy of being able to knock the ball around the ground and manufacture shots, but he just doesn't have that power game that we known Pant and Hetmeyer for. But yeah, no surprises that team is the same. But yeah, I mean, shame. Anrik Nokia, he's going to have to carry on waiting. We're waiting to see this wild thing come out and bowl gas, but not yet. But I think their bowling lineup is really good too. Ishan's come in, he's done nicely. KG, we're waiting to see the best of him yet, but all the good players so far that we've spoken up have shown up at some point. Butler showed up today, Chris Morris has shown up. So at some point we will see KG come to the party too with wickets or whatever it is that they're hoping for him to bring to the game.
Okay, as Dale makes that point, Mayank Agarwal and Prabh Simran Singh have walked out. So it looks like they'll stick to Gale 3 and David Malan 4 and then the rest, or maybe Deepak Hooda 4. No, it's surely David Malan 4 and then Deepak Hooda. But the point that Dale makes, Dan, is an interesting one. We almost discuss KL Rahul in every Punjab game. Whether he scores, whether he doesn't, it seems to be a point of conversation. For a team like Punjab, where the spotlight is literally on Rahul, he's the alpha of the team, can it sometimes help in his absence, where you're not necessarily looking at, Rahul needs to get runs, then we're looking good. And maybe sometimes this sort of, reflection or spreading of the limelight may help?
I think it's sort of like the RCB of with talking about Kohli and De Villiers, and that was always the focus. The spotlight was on them, and in some ways, when they didn't perform and others did, then it was more satisfying from a team perspective because you didn't have to rely on them all the time. But in some ways, I think it's different with Rahul because if you look at the last game, you've got to replace 90 runs, and more often than not, he's around that 40 to 50 mark. So you've got to replace those runs, and it's easier said than done with the actual lineup they have. They've got Malan on debut, and then a couple of inexperienced Indian guys who are not used to that sort of spotlight. So I think it is difficult, but they do have the one person who can soak up all that attention, Chris Gale. And if Chris Gale can have a night tonight, then he can be the focal point. He can be the KL Rahul of the game, and take all that pressure off the rest of those young guys.
All right. Well, let's pick up this conversation in 20 overs time. Dale Steyn, that's a wrap for you. Thank you very much. We will see you again very soon. Dan Vettori, can't wait to burn the midnight oil watching some more IPL cricket.
Dale can stay, can't he? Sure, he can't stay down.
Good luck, Dan.
He's set to light up a barbecue on his Sunday, so it's very different.
I'm about to light up the fire. No, I'm not joking. I'm so excited.
Do enjoy, Dale. Daniel, I will see you in a little while from now. What a day it's been. Imagine these 4 teams, less than 6 months of the last IPL, all had 4 different captains that played today. It's staggering how much has changed in not a very long period of time. Do catch us then for Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Intel. Of course, let's not forget, all our viewers in India, do mask up in public, practice social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols, and do take your vaccine as soon as possible. Keep an eye out on how Punjab go, and we'll pick up the conversation in 20 overs. And of course, you can keep watching all the Vivo IPL live action and highlights on Disney Plus Hotstar.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる